What's up, guys? Welcome back to the show. I'm excited about today. We've got a repeat guest, Jason Olbekson from Salesforce. Welcome back.
Thanks. Pleasure to be back. Has there been other repeat guests?
There have been. You got a few more repeats to make it on the top repeat.
Do you get a
Hall
jacket
of Fame.
someday, like the Saturday Night Live five
Yeah,
timer?
maybe like a Green Masters jacket or something.
I would love that. Thanks for having me back.
Well, yes. You didn't bomb last time. That's what we came. We got to do
Great.
back. So, you're joined by Chris Baker with Ensign Natural Resources.
Ensign Natural Resources. Yep.
Boom, nailed it.
Hoping to be a repeat guest.
Hoping to be a repeat guest. He's like, how do I do this podcast thing? I said, just talking to the mic and smile, baby. It'd be good. So you guys are doing some cool work together. We wanted to try to get you guys in for Energy Tech Night to tell that story, but Jason, you were out of town. I said, hey, let's just do this as a podcast. So I really want to dive deep into maybe do some quick intros. So anybody who didn't catch the last episode with you, Jason, kind of dive into that, and then we'll go into Chris's real quick.
Sure. Jason Olbekson. I'm the go-to-market director for Salesforce's oil and gas practice. So what that means is I'm ultimately responsible for our go-to-market strategy for everything Salesforce does in oil and gas globally around the world.
One of the P2 OGs before going to Salesforce. So you know the industry intrinsically. You've been doing this for probably 15 years now?
A little bit longer. Actually, I started my career with Unical fresh out of college. So I'm going to date myself before Chevron Bottom as a production analyst. So just a little bit over 20 years. Don't let the young looks fool you.
I know. Chris, what about you?
Yep. Chris Baker from Ensign Natural Resources. I'm the production manager there. We are a private equity oil and gas firm. We're backed by Warburg Pincus and Kane Anderson.
Cool.
We acquired an asset in Eagle Ford in 2019. And so I've just been working that asset and drilling wells and making oil and saving OpEx.
Just grinding away. So how did you two guys meet?
I think the Opportune, which you might be familiar with, right? Who did the work
That's
for
right.
you, invite us to a lunch. I hadn't even heard your story on our technology, which is amazing because it's probably one of the best stories we have. So I think that's the first time I met you.
So I drank the Salesforce Kool-Aid.
Okay.
And then once we got into all the teddy bears and all that, we were looking for something a little bit more. Once you start using the application, there's other ways you can use it. One of the ways we were trying to use it is to create a field data capture.
Mhm.
And currently we use some version of P2. And so I heard that podcast actually.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, he's from P2 and American. He knows all of that. And I wanted to build a field data capture off of Salesforce. And so we're still working on it. But then our implementation consultant, Ross Benton, he hooked us up. And we went to Perry's.
Yeah.
What? So does Opportune work with you guys?
Yes, they have a Salesforce practice.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
We're
so they do some Salesforce work.
we're chatting with we've been chatting with the team lately. But some behind the scenes stuff. You guys will see it come to fruition soon. But that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know you worked with those guys at all.
Yeah, they have a great business with us.
So who wants to? So you reached out to Jason. Hey, would love to build this field data capture application. He's over here teasing us, saying this is probably one of the best Salesforce stories. Where do you want to begin?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you maybe just about how we got it, how we dove into it.
Yeah.
And so 2019, we were looking for an application to use to run our business. We were looking for a CMMS originally, but even more than that, we were looking for something to run our operations completely. I guess maybe a little bit of backstory. I came from another operator, another independent, and there we spent right before I jumped to Ensign, we spent a considerable amount of money and a considerable amount of time building a really fit for purpose application on SAP Cloud. It was really good.
What's give me a ballpark range of what's considerable amount of money? You don't have to give me an exact number. Just like a floor and a ceiling.
Between 3 million and 1 million.
Okay. So a lot of money.
That's maybe not.
That's considerable
for me. It is, but maybe not you guys. I mean, you guys are rolling it.
That's pocket change. That's what I said. I got a couple mil in my pocket now. That's significant amount for build out for software these days.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot of that was the cost of implementation. We had to spend we spent like 3 weeks in India, like working with all the solution engineers, making it,
Mhm.
and a lot of that was just customization and trying to say, hey, we want it to work like this, and
What were you trying to accomplish with that software?
same thing. So I am absolutely not an IT guy.
Mhm.
I was in the field. I've been in the Eagle Ford since 2011. Um, as an operator, foreman superintendent. So I was kind of in that capacity. And so I look for the digital solutions to make more oil safely and reduce OpEx. That's kind of like my mantra, right? Uh, and so that's what we were looking for. We were looking for a solution to do that. And we built a control room here in Houston, and we needed an application to to use to facilitate that control room. And so that's what we went and built that solution. But when it came to Ensign, we're private equity. We don't have a lot of time, and we didn't have a lot of money, and
Mhm.
so we had to get a little bit, we had to think outside the box a little bit. And then I watched a random video on the World Wide Web. It it was a teaser on a Salesforce application. It was pretty gangster, and so I got contact with the Salesforce rep that had been calling me forever. But like, who needs a CRM in the oil field, right?
Mhm.
So I'm like, I don't know why you're calling me because I don't need to talk to you. I'm not a salesman. So then when I we talked to Salesforce finally, figured out what we needed, which was field service. And then once we got field service, we we had the implementation consultant Opportune, like we talked about,
Mhm.
and then we put it to work for us.
So you started off this engagement. So Jason's probably calling you this whole time. He's like, man, these Ensign guys are assholes. They're not answering. And then you're like, oh, you've been calling me this whole time. No, I need this. So it started off as the field data capture piece, or it started off with the field service and then kind of moved into like field data capture
Yeah,
details.
absolutely. Field service
Okay.
first, because we were looking for an application to facilitate our operating model. Um, and then once we got that kind of fixed up, we were looking for it just to add on. Because this is one of the benefits of Salesforce. Like, once you paid for the licenses, it's like unlimited the amount of stuff you can put into it. You can
Mhm.
keep on building, 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 and all you have to really do is pay for the licenses, which is easy on OpEx.
So expand with me. So you said you were doing some stuff in P2. What were you trying to do in P2 that it couldn't do, or what were you wanting out of like building something entirely new with Salesforce and the field data capture to kind of to go through that process? Just kind of unpack that a bit.
Yeah. So I don't want to trash P2, but but uh, for an operating model, there's a lot of times it's operate by attendance, which you go from well to well to well, and so their application, even, or field operator, is really pointed for the guy who has a computer in his truck, and he goes to this well and he types in
Mhm.
the field data capture, and that's really how it's supposed to work. But when you transition to operate by exception or dynamic operating, it's a lot different because you have a control room looking at the field in aggregate, and you don't necessarily have an operator going from well to well to well. And so you're utilizing all those shared resources. And so the application doesn't really fit that operating model because you might not have an operator go to the well site for a week, maybe. And so because you're just operating and looking at it remotely. And so we were looking for a solution to look at the production, make sure that all any measurement issues are resolved, and just move it forward through production accounting. Uh, Easy, but yeah, that
So
was
walk me through the kind of operate slash pump by exception. When and I guess what are these exceptions? Like when are pumpers actually going out there? Because I'm kind of just going back to, I don't know if I told you, we had some wells in Oklahoma that we operated our pumper naturally. I mean, the dude was like 80 years old, been pumping the same wells for like 60 years. And so like you just go out there pretty much 7 days a week. go in there, check in, see if anything was broken, if we had any leaks on anything, if anything needed to be fixed, if you need to call the roustabout crew, do you need to, call in any loads, normal like pumper stuff. So like for anybody who's listening who's like not familiar with kind of this whole pump by exception thing, walk us through that a little bit.
Absolutely. Uh, so like what you're describing is essentially operate by attendance, and he does a really good job because that 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 operator, he goes from well to well, make sure that everything's kosher. But when you have SCADA or some kind of SCADA that you can see all of your wells or all of your equipment out in the field, then you can start to utilize shared resources.
Mhm.
So operate by exception is we tiered all of our wells by production and then by OpEx, and so essentially by cash flow. So anything that makes money, the wells that make money, is where we want to focus first. And so if you're going to hit, say, a operator has the ability to hit 30 wells a day, you want him to hit the 30 wells that make you the most money versus the wells that are closest to the barbecue joint or closest
Mhm.
to his house. And so then you prioritize his day based on that. And then a little bit further than that is dynamic routing, which we do at Ensign. Essentially, we have a control room who sees everything in aggregate, prioritizes all of the wells that are making daily production, but then also sees the break fixes. So if a well goes down at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe the operate by attendance operator doesn't hit it back until the next day whenever he hits it.
Mhm.
But with dynamic routing, we say, hey, we've lost this well. It's a tier A well. It's making a lot of production. We want to focus on it. So why don't you break off from these other tier C opportunities that you have that are going to make less money and focus on the one that's going to make us the most money? And then we turn that around and turn him around and focus him on the right priorities. But that's what the Salesforce application let you do. It has a Gantt, and then you can prioritize all of your tasks, the type of tasks, and all of that. And so the operator sitting in Houston, shoulder to shoulder with the engineers and the facilities guys, they can say, "Hey, look, this well went down. Do you want us to go over there? What do you want us to do when we get there?" And then they break into his schedule and send him a task because we can see him real time what he's doing and when he's done.
Interesting. So so you're like scheduling, you're planning based on analytics, you're scheduling, and then you're in addition to the scheduling, you're kind of giving them, it seems like a checklist or a to-do list of just here's the things you need to do today, as opposed to I didn't tell my pumper anything. He just showed up every single day and would just do the exact same thing. But it was like, we didn't, this is what he'd been doing forever. We didn't really have a whole lot of wells. And so it was just like, he's going to do that. Right. So, but it totally makes sense in y'all's case. So that's interesting because most field data capture applications really don't get into like the scheduling or even like the task management kind of piece of it. It's literally just, hey, I'm going to put in gauges, run tickets, maybe capture some pressures. Maybe that comes from the SCADA. If you're hauling off water, capturing all of that. Um, any other random, just like field service stuff, rouseabout stuff like that.
So field service isn't necessarily a field data capture tool. That's like what we were trying to build ancillary to the overall product. It's there um, to facilitate companies that have some kind of service industry. Uh, we went to watch a bunch of Dreamforce, and you see like there's like pool companies that use it because essentially they're just servicing like clients, and so we
Mhm.
just treat the wells like clients, and we want to give them really good service, but we want to give the really good wells the really good service, right?
Mhm.
And so we just translated that to the oil and gas business kind of.
Basically it's driving task
Mhm.
and prioritizing task off of information. So I call it the Moneyball theory. Remember that
Yeah.
book and the movie where prior to that, they looked, hey, that guy looks like he can hit, he's got a good swing. And then they said, let's just look at the stats, the data, and let's make all the decisions based on that. It's that approach to tending to the wells. Let's look at the bottom line margin and let's drive behavior based on that value component, and let's prioritize where someone spends their time to optimize the bottom line margin of the company.
So if people want to take a little walk down the memory lane, you guys acquired two big companies over the last, call it 5 years, MuleSoft and then Tableau. And I know that those have been integrated in like some kind of capacities. Does that really like touch these kinds of applications?
In some cases it does. I don't know. And I don't think you guys use those.
Not yet.
Yeah. So we have, and we bought also, spent $35 billion on Slack. So three big ones. Yeah. Pick that one up too.
Subtle brag. 35 bill pocket change.
Yeah. Last year, but, we won't talk about that. We're not quite integrated that, but I think.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Combo Curve. If you haven't heard, Aries and PhD win are out and Combo Curve is in. Combo Curve is the cloud-based operating system for energy companies. The single integrated platform helps your engineering teams become more agile, precise, and efficient than ever before. For the first time ever, you now generate type curves and forecast thousands of wells accurately and in a fraction of the time. Oh, and it can automatically run these forecasts every single day. What I love most about the Combo Curve team is their work ethic and actually caring about their customers. Every time I talk to the team, Armand, Jeremy, everybody else over there, they're reinvesting into growing the development team to tackle any challenges that their clients may be facing. But don't take my word for it. Go over to combocurve.com, read the dozens of testimonials on their website from clients like ARM Energy, Laredo Petroleum, Rock and W Minerals, and many more. Request a demo, and these guys will get you taken care of.
Salesforce has native integration capabilities. So a lot of times those data, the data that you're driving that insight and behavior from lives in a different application. So the easier and quicker and more scalable you can integrate that data, the better. So there's native integration. The MuleSoft for large organizations, they want to build enterprise integration strategies and API layers to just rinse and repeat it. So that lets them do that. And then Tableau, I don't think Tableau is much applicable here. Tableau is more business intelligence, maybe above and beyond some of these action tools. So this is probably just kind of our native core platform, the one that you know back from the force.com days where we took that out and then we built a scheduling optimization engine on that same native platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious because I've played around on the Salesforce platform a lot. Not as much in recent years, but a couple years back, I spent an enormous amount of time kind of playing around, building things in there. And it's just so robust. There's so much that you can do. But again, at the same time, as long as you're willing to like dedicate a little bit of time to like learning it, I mean, it's pretty much, I would consider to be no code, right?
Yeah.
In a way, you can just go in there and build whatever you want. It's funny you mentioned the whole Slack thing. Do you guys use Slack internally? I'm kind of curious from an EP perspective.
No.
Oh no. We got to start evangelizing Slack.
Yeah, Slack's all,
do you know what Slack is?
No.
Oh.
I don't know. It's
I feel like we didn't have a side tangent here.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys are working for any organization and you're sending emails, how do you guys communicate internally?
We use Microsoft Teams and then emails.
Okay, so if you're doing either one of those, Microsoft Teams, I guess is a suitable replacement to Slack. We've been on Slack since I don't know, probably 2014, 2015, I think. All our internal communication takes place in Slack. Any other organizations who have Slack.
I didn't know that. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you are a customer.
We've been a Slack customer.
Salesforce.
This Slack
Salesforce customer
has probably been the most repurposed single Slack channel because it's been for our oil company, for our consulting company, for now Digital Wildcatters. Like if you look through like previous users on the Slack channel, it's been like 1 million people.
That's awesome.
It's been used all the way through. So thoroughly enjoy Slack. And then we set up notifications. And this is where like, I don't know if Teams has this ability. Maybe they do. Maybe it goes above and beyond. I don't know. But like for us, let's just say Empower. So we have this Empower conference coming up. We have an entire channel set up for automations to where if somebody registers, boom, we get a notification. So anybody's on that channel sees the registrations that come through. So for you guys, it could be like, oh, here's an exception. Boom. And then now you have a running channel of all of your exception notifications. Oh, well goes down. Boom. Now you see that. Oh, somebody is over budget on something. Boom, you get a notification for that. And so it becomes like not only this hub for like our communication, but the hub for automations that come in from forms, from the website, from our CRM, from a million different things. And the reason I'm going on this tangent is not to like call Ensign out, But the reason I'm going on this tangent is because if any of you guys are listening and you don't have like some sort of like communication hub internally as an organization, you're really like doing yourself a disservice because you can just operate so much quicker and more agile. And I think there's a lot of just really cool plugins that you can kind of tie to that. So I didn't expect this to take a random side turn down the Slack thing, but for anybody who's listening, if you have any questions about it, I've been a Slack user for forever, like I said. If you're trying to like pitch it to your boss or something about, hey, why you should use Slack, reach out. We'd be happy to chat with you. I'm just a long-term user, love products, and it's.
You're gonna charge us some kind of commission fee, vendor fee?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna go, but no, Slack's been great. Not to dog. I have zero experience with Microsoft Teams, so I can't really say, but I know it is somewhat comfortable.
Yeah. We use Teams pretty extensively. Even like the field users, they'll communicate through Teams. And you've got the channel for everything. We haven't used all the bots or anything.
So let me ask you this: How does Salesforce communicate internally?
Slack.
Slack.
As soon as we bought it.
So were you guys a Slack shop before you bought Slack?
Not at all. So as soon as we bought it, like that's a big thing for us. We use our own technology for everything. So as soon as we bought it, it was a rapid deployment and drinking from the fire hose. And at first it was, well, what is it? What do we got ourselves into? But now I kind of agree with you. Once we kind of turned on all the workflows and automated process, I'm starting to see the value. I don't have any emails anymore. I keep going to my inbox, refreshing, going, where the hell are all my emails? And they're all in Slack, and they've all been, serviced up to me in the right time. And I've already responded via the channels. So it really has replaced emails for us.
Yeah.
We're all in.
It's huge. So yeah, if you're an EEP, OFS company, you're not using something like that, you should.
And I think our long-term vision will be to start building out integrations to this core Salesforce platform and processes that touch that. So it's somewhat seamless to the end user of what they're using. It's just kind of an engagement layer for all the work that's being done.
So what's the vision with kind of y'all's, I mean, you said, we were talking about analytics, you said, hey, not yet. Do you guys have like a vision that you're working towards and like what you're wanting to be able to build and get out of it?
Yeah. I mean, one of the benefits of having operational software is anything that our field staff is doing in the field, we're tracking. So, not in a like a weird Big Brother way, but more of like, hey, we're gathering all that data. We can find out where there's defects. We fix that defect, and then we don't fix that anymore, and then we refine that process. But I mean, as far as like building more into Salesforce, every year when I watch Dreamforce or just when I talk to Ross or Jason, I feel like there's more stuff that we could use, different opportunities to build on it. And so, I mean, as we encounter some issue that we can't solve, we need a software solution. I call Opportune typically, and I say, hey man, how long is this going to take? And they're like, hey, that's not going to take it long at all, and it's not going to be that expensive. And man, I love hearing that.
Is Dreamforce back in person yet?
Kind of. Last year was 4,000 or 5,000 people, and then it got shrunk down to 2,000. So it's not the big Dreamforce that. Have you guys been to Dreamforce?
I haven't. I've seen.
You have to go when it gets. I'm hoping, double fingers crossed here, if you're watching on the video, that it gets back to 100,000 plus people taking on the city of San Francisco. That's the goal for this fall is when we usually have it, but we're still waiting to see how this COVID thing you might have heard of shakes out, but not quite yet. We'll see.
COVID still a thing? I don't know.
Not in Texas.
Not in Texas. But
seems to be lingering everywhere
else. So that's I'm hoping we get back to the craziness and the excitement for what it was before. It was virtual, which is okay, but it's not the same thing. So we're not quite back to normal, but we'll see this year.
It's got to be one of the largest conferences.
What I heard is it's number 3 behind like the CE, Consumer Electronics Show, and something else, at least when it was full force back in the day when it was 100,000 plus people. Getting U2, Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, you can't get much bigger than that as far as just mass appeal bands. It's a lot of fun.
This is turning into a commercial for
hey,
Dreamforce. Come work at Salesforce.
Yeah. Or just come to Dreamforce. It's a lot of fun.
For you guys, I'm curious how things are. A lot of things have changed since the last time we had you on the show, and so I'd say that was probably, call it $40-$50 last time you were on, because that was what, 2019, early 2020, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Oil is WTI is probably like what, 109 or 111. Let's see. And oh my Lord, I've never seen it this high in my life. As of the time we're recording, WTI is 115. Natural gas is $5. Brent crude's at 118. So like things have changed, and it's pretty much mostly you in Houston on this. Like, it's considered like what, the manufacturing industrial vertical, and then like oil and gas is a part of that?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm curious with like the way things are kind of trending with energy as a whole, kind of being more and more talked about, whether it be through climate change or whether it be through renewables or whatever. That's becoming obviously more and more increasingly more popular. But oil and gas is now, we're back, baby. Oil prices are the highest they've been in my entire career in the last decade. So I'm curious do you have any insight into, are they going to be investing more into your team? Are they going to be growing that, or?
Yeah, and I do want to turn a question back to both you guys. So last year was really good for us. I think this year is going to continue to be really good. Of course, the bar was pretty low when you think back to 2020 when we had negative oil for a little bit. So I think we'll continue to invest. We think of it holistically across energy. So we have the manufacturing and then the subsidized energy. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of renewables, a lot of, the bigger companies are switching into retail electricity, carbon capture, all that stuff. So, this will be one of our fastest growing segments, and we'll continue to invest. It'll be interesting to see how the traditional oil and gas shakes out. 6 months ago, it was, everything's renewables, everything's power and utilities, oil and gas, fossil fuels is dying. And now everyone's like, whoa, wait a second, we're back.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you guys, I'm still seeing in our customers a lot of capital discipline. They're not they're not overspending like they might have in years past. And then too high oil, in my opinion, might be bad for us as a technology company, because then a lot of companies are making so much money that they don't really think they need to be efficient. So that's my question to you guys. Do you think the companies are still going to look for efficiencies, margin, technology, when historically, when oil was gangbuster high, it was just like, let's make hay while the sun's shining, and we don't need to worry about efficiencies because we're making so much?
I'll let Chris take it first, and then I'll chime in.
I would say back in the last boom, I absolutely felt that culture of, hey, oil price is high, need to make the production safely no matter what. And that was like, that was absolutely the mandate. And there wasn't much, we still watched OpEx, but I mean, it wasn't at the forefront. Today, as far as Ensign's concerned, we just barely started up another rig. We're excited to have 2 rigs rolling. So we've got a good drilling program for this year. We're excited about making more oil. We're still focused on OpEx. I think in general, people are less apt to just jump out there and make a lot of, maybe, I don't want to say, questionable investments, or maybe not as diligent in ranking them, or whatever. I think everybody's a little bit more disciplined. And then as for us, I think we're focused on just drilling out of cash flow. And I hope that our industry in general tries to have the discipline to drill out of cash flow and not leverage super big RBLs and try and go down that.
I agree with everything that Chris said. I think that it's a weird kind of dynamic between more of the private companies and the public companies. Obviously, you've had just so much investor pressure to not grow production whatsoever, and I feel like that's kind of bled across the industry. And so I think we're going to see a lot more capital discipline. I think in, whenever oil's 40, 50, whatever, or sub that, it's very easy for management teams to look and say, or complain and say like, oh, I didn't have a fighting chance. Like, how are we supposed to make money in this environment? And then like commodity prices is kind of an easy scapegoat. I think that people would be I think they need to be a little cautious and not be reckless with their capital discipline now that oil is at 115, because if you can't make money at 115,
You're in the wrong business.
you're in the wrong business. And I think that those mistakes will definitely have a light kind of shown on them. So I think we're dealing with, I think the industry's smarter this time around. I think not just more disciplined. I think that, you look at the 2014, 2015 timeframe, whenever I was kind of starting my career into this industry, we were selling like the first GDS, where it was like the first cloud-based quote unquote production software. The P2s, the Quorums, the Inertias, like nobody had anything remotely close to it because it was all on-prem. And so you got to think that like how new of a concept that was in 2014, 2015. And now the craziness that we're talking about in this industry in terms of like, I mean, so many EPs now are like mining Bitcoin or like looking into mining Bitcoin. Like that shook me. Like once now we're doing an entire conference around it with Empower, but once we started realizing how much interest there was from the industry around like using natural gas to mine Bitcoin, blew my mind, because I was there in 2014. I was there in 2015. People were like, what the fuck is a cloud?
Right.
I'm like, so how do you go from what the fuck is a cloud to like all of a sudden, like, it's not just necessarily these young guys. It's the guys who've been around the block for a minute have now been convinced that, hey, now this is something that we should pay attention to. So I think the industry as a whole is getting much smarter in terms of what do we need to do with technology.
And I'm hoping I think that's healthier, and I'm hopeful because I kind of think everyone's realizing rising tides raise all ships. And if we can do it, it's not an arms race to see who can, drill the most wells and bust out the top line production. I will say I was in the Middle East in November for ADIPAC, and I would still say a lot of people there are like, what the fuck's the cloud?
Really?
Yeah. Especially Saudi, UAE, because they have a lot of data residency requirements. They're very nervous about their data getting beyond their borders, as they probably should be, justifiably so. So there's still a big reluctance around cloud technologies there, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, you got to think somebody like Saudi Aramco, where like, I guess we kind of know now that they're public more information than we've ever known about them as a company, but I feel like there's still so much that is unknown, to where imagine all of a sudden you're hosting with AWS or Azure,
Right.
and then there was some sort of like data leak, what that could pose them
Yeah,
either
they're
from
very
a
nervous
reputation
about that.
standpoint or security standpoint or something like that. I could definitely see that being a kind of an issue for those guys. But that's interesting that people are still like.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. But I agree with you. It feels like a whole new world, even then looking back 5 years.
Yeah.
Service companies too, like back in 2013, 2014, it seems like everybody was like trying to start like a service company, and they were leveraging themselves like to the hilt,
Mm-hmm.
and banks were giving out tons of
Right.
money to do that. We haven't seen that today. Like there hasn't been like companies like leveraging, but you're buying tons of frac trucks or vac trucks or anything like that. And so I think it's also transitioned to the service companies. There's some reluctance to even buy like a hot oil truck.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about some of those big acquisitions. Does Salesforce have they, or are they interested in making any like industry specific kind of investments? Like I think you guys bought like CMO.com, which I thought was really weird, but like maybe as it pertains to energy kind of as a whole,
I think we might see that. And another smaller acquisition I think has really helped some of the stuff Chris talked about is we acquired a company called Click. So Click was that field service tool that Chris referenced was, I would say it's Click's IP. And we were actually an OEM of Click. So we had a relationship, and then we bought them about 3 years ago, and we're taking they're really big. They're not specifically only oil and gas, but they're telecom, energy, power utilities, oil and gas was one of their biggest segments. And now we've taken a lot of that IP. So I think we'll continue that. I don't know if we're going to buy just specific energy software. We might. I feel like they are looking for more horizontal applications that might have industry specific use cases in maybe 2 or 3 different industries. That's what I see the future being.
Yeah. It's always that question of like energy tech as a whole, who becomes, and you've seen it working at P2, like who becomes that the next company that comes in and makes a lot of acquisitions. I think up until recently, until COVID hit, Inveris was making a ton of acquisitions in the space. The last one kind of being Q Engineering that I know about. They've acquired MineralSoft. They've acquired like a ton of other companies prior to that. obviously RSEG and that whole merger. But before that, before Inveris was in the picture, it was the P2s,
Right.
the inertias and the quorums. And what funded that was just a ton of private equity coming into the space and just being so interested in energy to be able to come in, piece together a lot of stuff and kind of do a roll up. And I don't see a ton of that same energy that we saw probably in the early 2010s to late 2010s.
Yeah. And I don't see us ever focusing as much as I would love to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I know my place in the pecking order of Salesforce. I think our oil and gas practice is probably, to be honest.
I was told you pretty much run the place.
Well, for oil and gas, but you know, as far as the whole pecking order,
I heard it was like Benioff and then Olbekson.
Yeah, we're
Just
probably
like,
a rounding error. Like what? We sell. No, I mean, we have a pretty big practice, but some of our bigger segments, financial services, healthcare, government, I mean, they're 10, 20 times larger than we are.
Do we ever see a Salesforce tower in Houston?
We need an office first in Houston. We don't have an office. I might have. Can I have a cubicle here?
Yeah. We get you guys set up.
I don't know if that's happening. We have one in New York, San Francisco. I don't know if it's happened. I was actually in Dallas. I came straight here from Dallas. We have a pretty significant presence in a nice office in Dallas.
Really? I didn't know
downtown in Dallas.
Oh,
pretty nice.
Wow.
So maybe never say never, right?
Well, guys, this was fun. This was fun just chatting about all the cool things you guys are working on. Jason, it was great having you back. Chris, we'll get you back on in the future.
Sounds great.
Hear more about what you guys are working on. We need more E&P guests. We really do. And so I do appreciate that. We haven't had a lot of E&P guys on in probably, I don't know, last year or so. So if you're listening, if you're like Chris, you want to come on and just talk about y'all's journey, whether it's, starting something new or you're coming into, I don't know where I was going though with that. If you're an E&P guy and you want to come on the podcast, reach out, let me know. Really enjoyed this episode, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon.